What if I told you one man nearly bought entire countries, not with armies, but with matches? He loaned millions to governments, forged alliances with presidents, and lit the fuse that almost blew up the global economy. His name was Ivar Kreuger, the Match King, a Swedish genius who turned fire into fortune and trust into a weapon. Behind his empire of light was darkness, fake bonds, ghost companies, and whispers of assassination. Even the most powerful bankers in Europe feared him, until one morning in Paris, he was found dead with a single bullet through his heart. Was it suicide, or was the world's most dangerous financier silenced? Beat, rising tension. Stay until the end to see how a man who controlled nations with paper and charm vanished overnight, leaving a mystery that still burns a century later. Want to know how it ends? Watch the full video in the description. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime exposés. Part 1. Faces of Power, the Match King and the Electric Emperor. They were not gangsters, nor soldiers, nor kings, yet they ruled nations, commanded loyalty, and shaped the world's future with little more than paper, promises, and faith. In the feverish glow of the 1920s, when the stock market felt like a divine engine and prosperity seemed eternal, two men emerged as symbols of modern genius. Ivar Kreuger, the Match King of Sweden, and Samuel Insull, America's Electric Emperor. Both built empires that dazzled the public, employed thousands, and promised progress. Both believed that structure itself could replace substance, that confidence could be the new currency. And for a time, they were right. Kreuger's rise began with fire. Born in 1880 in Kalmar, Sweden, he trained as a civil engineer, worked in New York and South Africa, and returned to Stockholm with a vision: to consolidate the world's match industry into one vast monopoly. He was part engineer, part magician. By offering struggling governments huge loans, especially after World War I, he secured exclusive rights to sell matches in entire countries. France, Poland, Hungary, Germany, all took his money, all signed his contracts. To many he was a savior, a man who brought liquidity to nations still bleeding from war. To others he was a predator dressed as a patriot. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Samuel Insull, born in London in 1859, followed a very different path. He began as Thomas Edison's secretary, carrying papers and learning the business of light. By the early 1900s, he had become a titan of American electricity. His dream was not to control fire, but to distribute light, to wire the entire Midwest, to make power as essential as air. He founded Commonwealth Edison, then dozens of subsidiaries, creating a financial ecosystem so vast that few could grasp its complexity. Investors adored him. Middle-class families poured savings into his companies, believing that electricity, like faith, could only go upward. Both men dressed impeccably, spoke softly, and appeared in newspapers as visionaries. They didn't steal from others, they borrowed from the future. Kreuger issued bonds backed by promises of future profits. Insull created layers of holding companies that owned one another in dizzying spirals of debt. They turned optimism into a business model. Their names became synonymous with progress, and progress in the Roaring Twenties was a god no one dared to question. But beneath the silk and structure lay something darker, fragility disguised as genius. Kreuger's wealth existed mostly on paper, built on accounting tricks and a web of intercompany loans that could collapse at the first sign of panic. Part 2. Origins and Methods. How Vision Became Delusion. Ivar Kreuger understood psychology as much as finance. He knew that governments, like people, wanted to believe in saviors. Post-World War I, Europe was drowning in debt and despair. Kreuger arrived with money, or at least the illusion of it. He lent France $75 million in exchange for match monopolies, offered Germany a massive loan to stabilize its currency, and charmed politicians from Warsaw to Buenos Aires. Behind the elegance of his letters and the precision of his accounting lay layers of deception. He created Kreuger and Toll, a conglomerate that owned subsidiaries upon subsidiaries. Each company borrowed from another, reported false profits, and issued shares that inflated his apparent wealth. It was not a crime of greed alone, it was a performance. Kreuger saw himself as a conductor orchestrating faith itself. In America, Insull's delusion took a different form. He was not a liar, he was a believer. He genuinely thought his holding companies were the future of capitalism. By creating cascading ownership structures, he could control hundreds of firms with minimal capital. For a while, it worked beautifully. Cities glowed, towns prospered, and Insull's companies provided power to millions. He became a folk hero, the embodiment of progress. But in his empire, too, everything depended on rising stock prices. When the market fell in 1929, the illusion unraveled. Each subsidiary dragged down another. Investors who had once idolized him now demanded blood. Kreuger, watching from Europe, faced a similar reckoning. The Great Depression turned his generous loans into deadly liabilities. Countries could no longer repay him. His accounting tricks began to surface, and whispers grew in the financial capitals of the world. On March 12, 1932, he was found dead in his Paris apartment, a pistol by his side. The official report said suicide. Others whispered of assassination, that he had known too much, that his death protected too many powerful interests. When investigators opened his books, they discovered a $400 million hole, one of the largest financial frauds in history. The Match King had burned himself out. Insull's collapse was slower, but just as brutal. His empire disintegrated under the weight of debt. In 1932, he fled to France, then to Greece, pursued by outrage and indictments. He was arrested and extradited, tried for mail fraud and embezzlement, but astonishingly acquitted. The jury found him guilty of recklessness, not crime, a difference that history would later erase. He died in 1938, alone in a Paris subway with 8 cents in his pocket, a man once worth billions reduced to a footnote. Both Kreuger and Insull were victims of their own architecture. They built systems so intricate, so dependent on trust, that no one, not even they, could untangle them. Their downfall was not just financial, it was existential. They had mistaken confidence for reality, and when belief vanished, so did they. Part 3. Legacy, Memory, and the Weight of Illusion. In the aftermath of their collapse, the world of finance changed forever. Kreuger's fraud sent shockwaves through Europe's banking system, accelerating the global depression. His fall forced governments to demand stricter corporate auditing, the separation of banks and industrial firms, and transparency in accounting, rules that still echo today. Insull's failure fueled public outrage that gave birth to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission in 1934. The modern language of financial regulation, disclosure, accountability, oversight, was written in their ashes. Yet strangely, both men became myths. To some, Kreuger remains a tragic genius, a man ahead of his time, crushed by a world unready for his vision. In Sweden, biographies still debate whether he was a fraudster or a misunderstood savior. His letters reveal a mind obsessed not with greed, but with perfection, control, and destiny. He wanted to build a global order, stable, efficient, engineered like a bridge. And perhaps, like any bridge, it collapsed when one bolt gave way. Insull, meanwhile, has been largely forgotten, but his legacy is everywhere. In the power grids he designed, in the concept of utility holding companies, even in the ethics reforms that followed his ruin. He was the prototype of the modern corporate visionary, loved, trusted, and then destroyed by the very system he helped create. He showed that capitalism's most dangerous illusion is not greed, but faith, the belief that progress itself guarantees virtue. So which man was more dangerous? The one who forged numbers in ink, or the one who forged belief in hearts? Kreuger manipulated the world's balance sheets. Insull manipulated its hope. One used deceit as strategy, the other as philosophy. Both remind us that the most powerful empires are not built from steel or oil or paper. They are built from trust. And trust, once broken, leaves scars deeper than any debt. Even today, their ghosts whisper through every financial collapse. Enron, Lehman Brothers, FTX. Each time we rebuild the same illusions, believing this time it will be different. But illusion has always been humanity's most renewable resource. So as we remember Ivar Kreuger and Samuel Insull, 2 men who sold the world its own reflection, we must ask ourselves, have we truly learned, or are we still lighting matches in the dark, pretending they are stars? If this story moved you, Please like the video, share it, and subscribe to Red Dossier, where we uncover not just the crimes, but the minds behind them. We'll be waiting.